content, and I'll just start in when it goes live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another busy webinar. This is our midsummer break webinar. We are having a great summer, and I hope you are too. And one of the things that's come up very recently in all of our client connections and communications is that really things are changing in the privacy world. And so I am delighted to have Carrie O'Brien with us here. Hey, Carrie.
Hey there.
And we are going to be talking about data privacy, how expanding state laws and legal trolls are impacting our websites in 2026. So as we go through, this is live streamed. So we are going to be making questions and answers available. We're going to do those over either the Q&A tool or the chat in Zoom. Or of course, if you are connecting with us and watching live on YouTube, you can also chat us there. I'll be keeping track of all of those screens as we present. So we do have some questions that people that registered in advance submitted, so we will absolutely get to those towards the end of the day, or towards the end of the deck today. So here we go. Privacy laws sound boring, but you're going to want to accept cookies on this one. So as we look through, this is super important because we are starting to get notices from now privacy trolls. You know, there were patent trolls, there were website trolls, and now there's privacy trolls. So people are essentially calling and saying, hey, I am in California, or I am deeply disturbed by something that I wasn't able to click on your website, and I demand to be forgotten or ignored, or I don't want anything tracked. And so I demand that you take this down, and or I want to submit a lawsuit. And so these trolls are going after those folks and basically saying, hey, if you pay us, we'll just let it go. And that's not fun and that's not cool. So that's why we have Carrie here. And Carrie, I know you have a disclaimer that you want to share as we get into this. So, yeah, what do you
It's
think?
uh it's the obligatory lawyer moment, so I apologize in advance for saying it, but I have to. So before we dive in, before you hear anything of substance, I have to say hi. I'm an attorney. I'm licensed in Minnesota and only in Minnesota. Everything that we're talking about today is for your general educational knowledge. This is not legal advice. We are not creating an attorney or client, attorney-client relationship here. And also, privacy laws vary by state, by country, by all the things. It's all very heavily dependent on your practice area, your business, your wherever you're sitting. So you're going to need to speak to someone in your state about your own laws and how it might impact you. So with that, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Dave.
And that's if I've ever heard a attorney disclaimer, that's perfect right there. So why don't we keep going? Just tell us about yourself, Carrie, and your business, who you're with, and most people know BusyWeb, but not everybody knows you yet.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, hi, everyone. I am attorney Carrie O'Brien. I run my own small solo practice in Shoreview, Minnesota, called Cove and Counsel LLC. I sit in the space of business. I have 17 years of marketing experience behind me, so I love sitting in this space with Dave and with team because I used to run a content marketing business. I used to sit in the online area, and so I am very happy to marry the two marketing and law here today. I also do estate planning, and I love kind of combining the planning for business and family together because you need it all taken care of. And I'm also, I will say this, a very happy member of the Lucere legal team in Minnesota as well. We did just take home two golds this year with Minnesota's Best, and that is something to be proud of. So I like sharing that.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if you want to get a hold of Carrie after the end of this to talk about your privacy needs and details, we do have her contact information available, and you're going to get an email with information, including this deck, the recording, if you want to share this with other folks on your team, and much, much more. So this is also going to be at our YouTube channel at youtube.com/busyweb. So if you are submitting questions, make sure that you don't submit anything personally identifiable or things that you don't want shared live on YouTube, because we want to make sure that we're respecting your privacy as we do this privacy pack. So Thank you. And now you know us. Of course, I am the president and founder of BusyWeb. We've been doing this since '99, since Google was 6 months old. And I'm also, in addition to running BusyWeb, which is a 20-person B2B marketing team that focuses on HubSpot, Google, and email. I am also a speaker and trainer for Google and for HubSpot. So we do a lot of these things. And I should do an aside. I met Carrie on stage at a digital summit. And so there's a digital summit coming up in a couple of weeks, actually next
Next week.
Wednesday.
Mhm.
So please do show up at that. It's DS Minneapolis, MPLS. And you can find all the details about that at digitalsummit.com. So, memories.
Yeah, we'll both be there. We'll both be back
Good.
on stage together next
Can't
week.
wait.
So
Going to be
I
fun.
know.
All right, so here's the history on why all of this stuff happened. So we had a client that forwarded us a legal threat that they had received. Now, a lawyer had been trolling their website and they didn't see a cookie consent banner pop up. Those are those things that show up and say, would we are going to be tracking your data. We have cookies on our website, accept, and then you can usually accept the different levels that you can do. And so, since that attorney did not see that, and they were operating in a state where those things are required, they sent them the notice saying, "Hey, I'd love some money, please." And that's not awesome. They weren't in the EU. They weren't even in a state that requires a banner. They were just banking that scary, attorney notice is going to result in, here, pay me this and we'll take care of it. So, thankfully, they forwarded it to us, and we were able to resolve it and give them just general language to share. We did encourage them to connect with their lawyers, and their lawyers did verify that, this language was good and legal and not going to get them in trouble, which of course we want to encourage everyone to do as well. So that's why. But then when we thought that that one was handled, uh-oh, two more clients actually got more notices. So I don't think they were explicitly targeting BusyWeb clients because there's not really a identifiable way to know which clients are ours anymore. But across all of those clients, they were seeing very similar things. It was actually different attorneys. And so there's just a wave of this stuff happening. And so we decided it's time to get proactive. And so, Carrie, are you seeing these in your practice as well?
Luckily, I haven't had anyone come to me with one of these yet. But what I can say is that they're abundant. They're coming mainly out of California right now, but that's just the beginning. And they're really easy. They're really easy to pursue.
Yeah,
So my whenever anybody asks me, what do I do? I'm like, I have things for you to do. Like you want to take proactive steps to not have to pay a settlement fee or not have to get yourself wrapped up in a litigation
right.
because they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Well, and that leads to, this slide. It's really a numbers game, and just like spam and phishing attacks, the stuff that your mom or grandma gets all the time, and frankly, that we get that keep getting
Yeah.
sneakier. They're just betting on people just saying, "Oh, I don't know what this is," and
Mm-hmm.
paying or acquiescing in some way that's going to get either an attorney in the door to become a client or to just, roughhouse and be dumb. And so, yeah, this is bad. Carrie, what is this all about?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of scary to get a demand letter in the mail, especially if someone hires a lawyer to send it and it's on lawyer letterhead and they're saying you got to pay something and we're going to take you to court if you don't. But let me hopefully settle some fears. A demand letter is not litigation yet, right? Like it really is just a hey, this is a threat of litigation. This is a threat of us pursuing something more formal. And what they're really just trying to do is settle and get as much money as they can out the gate, right? But what I can say is a lot of these letters you'll see in the mail right now. mainly, like I said, are coming from California because California has the most stringent laws of our nation right now.
Mhm.
And they are alleging things like, use of cookies, pixels, or analytics. And, if you're doing that improperly or you don't have all the right things in play to protect yourself against that, it's really cheap to hire a lawyer to send a demand letter versus what you could get, if someone actually pays a settlement fee. California, again, I'm just going to keep going back to California because we have very specifics and it's happening all the time.
Mhm.
Uh, per claim, per instance is a $5,000 like fine, right? And that's coming from just any individual who's got a browser on their computer can make one of these claims. What's interesting is that a lot of these are coming not from individuals actually visiting your website first and then being like, oh, they don't have it, so we're going to come after you. There are bots. There are spiders that crawl the web just like they do everywhere else, and those bots are just seeing what triggers with common trackers like Google Analytics, that kind of thing, and then they go down the line.
Uh,
So yeah.
just gross. I hate that.
It is so gross. It's so gross. It's so gross. It is absolutely taking advantage of something that wasn't meant to be taken advantage of. We're here to, like, these laws are meant to protect people's, privacy, their information, their lives, um and they are being absolutely turned on their heads to make a quick dollar.
Hmm.
It's really gross.
So yeah, this really isn't a legal lecture, and as we say here, this isn't doom and terrible, but it is happening. So we wanted to be proactive here and have somebody super smart like Carrie to share, what the reality is
Mhm.
and hopefully set people a little bit at ease. I mean, like you said, you haven't had any clients that have experienced these exact threats yet, but
Mhm.
even so, I don't think there's any real enforcement yet. It's just that all of a sudden these are starting to get teeth, right?
Well, there is some important, and this is, it's inconsistent. Okay,
Hmm.
so there are cases currently being litigated again in California,
Hmm.
and a couple of them are now at the appellate level, where some courts have said no, there's a commercial exception for this, like
Hmm.
stop. And there are other judges who are like, yeah, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to um, award you a class settlement and you're getting $3 million, like whatever, right? Like
Hmm.
it's across the board, very inconsistent. So I always just say, listen, if you see a letter, one, don't freak out.
Hmm.
You can work through this. Two, call your business attorney. And then three, call your web team. Because if you don't have the things in place, you can get the things in place pretty quickly. And
Yeah,
then like that's going to settle most things, right? So this isn't meant to be a legal lecture. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about laws and about where they come from and what that is. But honestly, you just need the right people behind you and you're going to be okay.
good. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, and so really the TLDR here is in wrapping up what we know and what the deal
Mhm.
is that first, privacy laws are becoming a real deal. Like you said, there's some appellate things happening, and California is sort of leading the charge on this. There's also a lot of stuff in Canada. There's also a lot of stuff in the EU that's happening. So, this is becoming a deal. So we want folks to know that they should be concerned about it and that they should at least be ready, right? So you don't really need to become an expert in privacy law to enjoy this, or to experience this and to handle it. But it does make a lot of sense to really have a working knowledge and to absolutely know what steps to take. And that is, of course, why we are here to share some of those settings to look at, some of the things to notice, and taking advantage of the tools that are available. If you're on WordPress, there are plugins for this. If you're in HubSpot, you can just turn it on. And actually, you have to proactively turn it off if you're in HubSpot because they just know that everyone needs to have this. And it does make sense to have somebody that knows privacy to update your site. And this is something that's going to be an issue if in the future, maybe not for everyone, but it's a thing now. So we just wanted everyone to know. So let's talk about the laws that actually matter. What are the biggies and where are we going? This is one of those fun things where I get to literally let the pro talk and go in. So Carrie, what's a GDPR, CDPA, EAIO? I don't
I
what.
did all the way home.
Mhm.
So the ones that we often hear about, and the first one that really came down the pike is the GDPR over in the European Union. Very rigorous laws around a whole variety of things with regard to online information, privacy, et cetera. So that's where this really started. California was like, we like that. So California came along and said, we're going to be that strong, if not stronger in some areas. And California created their own state law, the CCPA. A few things about this. I'm not going to give you the rundown again. This isn't a legal lecture. I just want you to understand where the things are coming from. So we started with the GDPR. This applies to you mainly. Okay. Like, again, I'm
Mhm.
speaking in broad strokes. You need to talk to your own lawyer, but this generally only applies if you actually reach into the EU itself, right? Like you're actually servicing folks in the EU. Enforcement against US only businesses just is incredibly limited. Is it possible? Sure, but it's just not really a thing that a lot of us have to worry about if we're not actively seeking any services, any customers, or working with folks who are in the EU.
Mhm. Okay.
Then comes the CCPA, which is the California state law, right? This would actually and could actually only be enforced by the California Attorney General's office, right? This is meant to be enforced by California regulators. So the AG's office would really be the only one bringing claims under the CCPA for things like a defective cookie banner or a missing do not sell or share link. Or
Mhm.
if someone has reached out to you and says, hey, I want you to delete my information, and then you don't, they'll go to the AG's office and the AG will come after you. Okay, so
Mhm.
that's the CCPA. Where we're coming in and where we're seeing a lot of issues right now is actually with state laws. And so SIPA, the California privacy law, other states' laws, this is where we're getting these private claims of action, the letters that you're seeing come in the mail, the demand letters. And that's where the volume's coming from because it's under those privacy laws specifically that give individuals like myself and you the ability to make a personal claim in court. Mhm. And like I said, they're priced to settle because nobody wants to litigate.
Right.
So that's where it's at.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Well, and I should
So
note that I get in our HubSpot account, like at BusyWeb, we are getting notices with please remove my data. Please remove
yeah.
my information. So that does happen. I mean, we're a small marketing agency with 100 clients. And so,
Mhm.
that the fact that we have folks in our database and our list coming in. And a lot of our clients are saying, I don't do business in California, so I don't need to worry about this. That's no longer really the case because, like you said, there's 20 other states that are popping those up, and probably most
Mhm.
of them within the next year or two. The rest of those states are also going to have some level of this legislation, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and that I think that goes to our next slide, right? Like there are about 20 states right now that have passed comprehensive laws on consumer privacy that you do have to comply with because while you may only be in one state or maybe you serve several states, but not all states, if someone from that state comes to your website, that's where the compliance really comes in. And there are 4 more laws coming on the books that have been passed this year that are going to go into effect next year. And several other states are having conversations right now. So yeah, we're at about half of the
Mhm.
states that have laws and the rest are following suit. And here's why. We don't have a federal law in the US, like, say the EU has or Canada has. Like, we don't have a regular federal law that addresses this broadly. So there's nothing to preempt to keep the states from making their own laws. And that's why every state has something different. They're not all the same. Some states like California are much more stringent than, say, states like Florida. Like it's just, it's incredibly challenging to keep up with these laws as they continue to come on the books. And then as they do get edited and changed, right? And so um, there's a lot to keep track of. There's a lot to keep track of. And that's why you don't want to be the one keeping track of that. You've got a business to run, right? Like for
Right,
those who are here, like
right.
you have other things to do. Let nerds like me and other
Mhm.
attorneys like geek out on that and manage that. Let folks in the space like BusyWeb who are creating these amazing websites and marketing plans and all these for like let us help you because good grief is it a lot.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I would kind of equate this to Lego roulette. Like, yeah, for anyone that's a parent, if you were inclined to not really worry about walking around barefoot in your house because you either didn't have a toddler or you kept your toddler or your kid that loves Legos confined to one room and those Legos were all over the floor there, you might have gotten, stepped on a Lego in the past because something snuck out. But more and more, Legos are being kind of interspersed in different rooms of your house now. So just because you only go to that one spot doesn't necessarily mean that you're not necessarily in danger anymore. So it's going to get more and more messy, and you need to put on your privacy shoes now.
I love that so much. That's great.
So let's get a little nerdy and talk about what the cookie banner in particular actually needs to do. So yeah, I can talk a little bit about this because we've been doing this for a number of clients, but it does absolutely need to disclose. So you need to share with your visitors that your site uses cookies and that they'll be tracked. And if your site doesn't track at all, if you have a simple HTML website or if you don't have any cookies on your site at all, I would still disclose that you don't. And so, it's just having that is going to be a good way to head that off. If you use tools like HubSpot or a CRM of any stripe that visits websites, if you use advertising on your website and or if you're tracking in any way to know if people are coming back to your website, tools like Lucky Orange, which registers visitors and can tell you like what people are doing on the website. They might not be tracking by individual person or coming against like the specific, I know that Bob Smith is visiting, but even if there's any code on that website, you need to be very careful of it. So just a simple disclosure, that's that pop-up that you're seeing on many websites. And the next thing you have to do is really give them a choice. So that's the clear option to accept or decline. And yes, everybody hates it. And there are some folks that, or some plugins that if you click no, it literally just moves you off of the website so that you can't do anything. But smarter settings will allow you to still interact without tracking. So that's one of the things that I love about HubSpot and the websites that we build on our sites. If you select not to get tracked, you just won't get tracked and you can still visit the website and it's not like it completely deletes your experience. But you do need to honor deletion if someone requests, Carrie, you mentioned this before, if they say, please remove all of my personal data from your databases and your stuff, you have to remove it from your CRM. You have to remove it from your website tracking codes. You have to remove that information. A good tool makes that relatively simple. But, if you don't have anything on that, or if you have an old WordPress website, or if you're using some marketing and you haven't really updated things in a few years, it's likely that you need to get a few things changed. Like forms are tricky, and we're going to talk about forms in a minute, but there's a lot of opportunity here. So, what has changed then is really that the laws aren't necessarily new, but the conversation is. So we've got some blog posts that we've been talking about. Carrie's already talked about what this is and what it means, but enforcement is here. And so all that really means is that, now people can raise hands and there's some teeth to this. So before people could say, I demand that you remove my stuff or I'm going to report you to the attorney general, and everybody like, whatever, it's not gonna do anything. But now some of those are already in court. And so now that we've seen some of that, that's where it's getting nasty. So just because you're in Minnesota and you don't serve any clients in California, that's not necessarily a thing anymore. Even if someone from the EU visits your website and you have nothing to do with the EU and working with them, you could be having some issues there. And again, it's a sliding scale. You're not likely to have any active things if, somebody from the EU reaches out to you. But, I don't think there's any active legislation pending in Minnesota right now on this, but it's probably going to be happening in the next couple of years. So, is there anything else that people just really need to be concerned about before we get tactical with what to check?
I think the only thing is just be aware, be aware of what your website is and isn't doing. If you're not sure if you're even tracking things, that's the first conversation to have with your web folks is, call up Dave if you're with BusyWeb, call up your team and say, okay, what's actually happening on my website? Am I covered? Like, do we have all the necessary tools in play? And that is the one, having that knowledge on your own is going to be super important because then if you see a letter come through, you'll be like, I know I'm okay.
Mhm.
Or, okay, I'll send this to my business attorney so they can respond and say, thanks, but no thanks.
Right.
But you're gonna be in a better state in, not state California, Minnesota wise, but you'll be in a better place,
Right.
right? And so I say that I think that's one thing. And then yeah, yes, the fact is we have been talking about people's privacy and taking care of people's information and being very protective. And we all understand how like really protective we are over like people's health information. And that like Dave said, it's not that this is anything new. It's just we're now having laws come into play that are really speaking to, listen, this is important and we do care. And with information going everywhere and people being targeted and all of this, like we want to be better stewards of people's information. And so this is nothing new. It's just, it's like a horse of a different color kind of
Mhm.
thing. Mhm.
I should add, yeah, it's just good business. I mean,
Yeah.
respecting people's privacy, respecting people's wishes is just the good thing to do,
Mhm.
right? And so,
Mhm.
let's all pay attention to common sense and, let's look at some of the things that you should probably address then. So, first, if you go to your website and there's no pop-up, and, it might be that you've accepted the pop-up and you've clicked OK, and so you don't see it anymore. Go into your website in incognito mode and check it because that will help to see or clear your cache and make sure that you are covered. So you probably need a pop-up or a little thing that flies up from the bottom and gives people the right to remove. But, here's 5 easy things that we like to check with all of our clients. So at the bottom of every website, you should have a link to your privacy policy. And your privacy policy should be updated. And if you haven't looked at it in a few years, there are some things that have definitely changed. So we used to have a website that we would recommend our clients go to get some sample language and then run that by their legal team. That website no longer, it must have gotten too expensive to keep it up all the time. So that website's not available anymore, but we have a tool that Carrie actually introduced us to that provides some sample language and can actually help you with this. Do you want to talk a little bit about Termageddon for a sec?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Can I geek out about it for a moment? So, so there is a tool called Termageddon. I recommend it to everyone I know who has a website. I'm a lawyer. I use Termageddon. And here's what it does. And who runs it. I actually know the owners. They're a married couple. They're lovely humans. One is an attorney. One is in the web development space, and they figured out how to make this work. And so, what they do is they spend their time getting completely aware of and comfortable with all of the privacy laws that are out there. They have created this tool that then allows you to go through this questionnaire. Do you serve people here? Where do you serve people? What do you do? Et cetera, et cetera. And then what that does is it actually populates a very personalized, I mean, not fully personalized, but a very targeted policy for you to then put into your website. And that automatically updates when new laws come into place, right? It says, hey, there's another law, go update the questionnaire with your answers, and your privacy policy will just automatically update on your website. If they're tied in, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing because, again, there are so many things changing all the time. And this just takes so much of that worry and stress off your plate. And what's great is Termageddon, yes, privacy policy, disclaimer, terms of service, and your cookie consent. And that cookie banner, the banner itself is important, but the consent and the actual getting permission, right? Like that's the key, because when someone says yes, then that gets tagged, right? And that yes is so important. Should they come back to you? I never said yes, you did. There is a timestamp. Yes, you did, right? So the tool tracks, like it just has all of what you need to comply, which is phenomenal. So yes, I know that Dave will have a link for this for anybody
Yeah,
who's watching this who wants to check it out. I know y'all have the ability to share this out.
yeah.
I can't say enough about it. So thank you for letting me geek out about it. I'm done now. I
Of
promise.
course, of course. And we should offer that a few of our clients have opted in through Termageddon, and it's been a very seamless, very easy process. And we'll talk about this at the end, but we do also have a privacy tune-up product or service that we're offering now because so many of our clients are asking about it. And the act of updating all of the assets across your entire website, including all of your forms and your HubSpot or your CRM and all of the other things, does require some lifting, and you need to know which stones to turn over to look under in order to fix. So that's clear and necessary. So privacy policy number one, locked in. If you don't have the privacy policy in your cookie banner, you need to get that, and you need to talk to somebody, your developer, or look at a tool like Termageddon to get your self-help. Should note, again, if you use HubSpot, all you got to do is turn it on, and you would have had to turn it off in order to get there. So you just have to unclick the turn off button. Next, has your attorney reviewed your privacy policy? Even if you have a cool tool with like Termageddon, you need to customize this to you. There are little things that, especially in the age of these privacy trolls running around looking for fun things to do, probably not going to be an issue for you, but it makes sense to have all of your bases covered and to talk to someone that explicitly deals with you, your company, your state, and the things that you do in your business. If you're in manufacturing, it's slightly different than if you're in a service-oriented business. If you're in a e-commerce business, it's an entirely different thing. So your attorney needs to look at these things. Just grabbing something that you grabbed off ChatGPT or something like that is not enough. So please do actually seek the counsel of people like Carrie. And then next, do your forms explain how submitted information will be used? So this is tricky because, a contact us form, a lot of people don't even look at their contact us forms after they put them on their website. And you need to have a disclosure on those forms now. And there should be a way to opt out of that data, even if you fill out those forms. So this is easy to do in HubSpot. It's easy to do with a lot of the better plugin tools in WordPress and other tools, the inside of the settings of those forms. But if you haven't looked at your forms in the past 2 years, you probably need to look at it again. And I should say, a lot of the forms that we've had on even BusyWeb's website, we looked at them as like, oh, this was a landing page form from 3 years ago, and it's technically still live. A bot could theoretically find it, so we just had to globally improve or update all of our forms. So, making sure that you're looking at your forms, anywhere you collect data from your clients, you need to be very clear and concise on what information will be used. Sometimes that's just a link to your privacy policy. For specific forms that you're using in novel ways, I would be even more clear and just add it right into the disclosure in the form. You could add it to The accept, I like being a little bit proactive, and even before people need to click submit, just explain to them where they are, and what they're getting themselves into. That can actually help improve your conversion rates, because if people see, okay, they promise that they're using my data responsibly, and I can be forgotten if I want to, and they're not going to sell it to anyone or any of those other things, that's going to result in people understanding, okay, well, this is a good company. This is an organization that I can trust enough to give whatever data it is. And of course, this is where I editorialize and I say, don't ask for things that you don't need to know. So, don't, it's, this is obviously overstating, but you would never go in and say, hey, all I need from this form is to get this, to sign up for our newsletter is your social security number. It's like, oh, no, bad, bad, bad. You don't want to do any of that. Generally, with forms, you have a ascending rate of detail that you can ask for, and that needs to directly reply or respond to the amount of value that you're giving in the form. If you're letting somebody subscribe to your newsletter, you can pretty much ask for their name and their email address, maybe their company. Everything else should be optional. I don't think I'd even bother with anything else, because you can always follow up later. If you're submitting for a, quote request, obviously you can ask for the things regarded or related to that quote. But again, I would not ask for credit card information. I wouldn't ask for anything that's, if it's an e-commerce site, there's all of the things built into that you need to be careful of, and all of those things, of course. But, name, phone number, and related questions directly related to the service of that quote, but nothing else, right? So make sure that you're giving people the opportunity to understand what you're using, why you're using it, and just keep your forms as short as possible, because with additional complexity comes more options for, edge cases for issues with this privacy stuff. So just make sure that you're careful on that. Number four, know which tools you're using to collect visitor data. So I mentioned things like Lucky Orange, Google Analytics, it's just HubSpot in general. There's lots of SEO or other data tools that you can plug into your website. If you haven't looked at, especially if you have a WordPress website, if you haven't looked at the plugins that you have on your website, you need to review those at least, I would say at least quarterly, but definitely annually. And there are a lot of folks that I talk to that are like, well, I don't know, we installed the website. There are still people, believe it or not, that don't even have secure socket layers on their website or secure certificates. So you should need to type HTTPS colon slash slash before you go to your website. If your website isn't secured or encrypted, the data that you're sending is interceptable over public networks. So if you're at a coffee shop and someone is kind of hoovering up your traffic, unless you are encrypting that data to and from the website by going to an HTTPS website, you are actively submitting or endangering your customers. Now, Google has been very big about this for a long time. And as a matter of fact, if you don't have a secure website, an HTTPS website, you're not even going to show up in Google search results anymore, because Google's like, well, I can't guarantee, and I'm not going to put our searchers in danger. So you need to have a secure website. And again, you can see the little padlock usually when you visit your website. You can see that it's secure. You could just Google or ask your favorite tool, is my website secure? And you need to be checking that. So knowing the tools is important. And of course, probably most importantly, do you know who to call to help you get this fixed? Do you have Carrie's number? Have you met Carrie, for one of my favorite shows? Anybody know what I'm referring to? Please enter it in the chat. If you do, I'll send you a gift card. But it's one of my favorite things. So you know who to call. We can help you with this. We will introduce you to Carrie. Or if you have an attorney that you work with, if you use a tool like Legal Shield or something like that, that's also helpful. Using a tool like Termageddon can be helpful as well. But, very important and very essential to start taking care of because now the slippery slope is starting to slide. And like I mentioned before, there are Legos all over the floor now. So you're about to be stepping and hopping on one foot. So it's time to take action if you don't know any of those five. And of course, that's where we can come in. So I want to talk a little bit about what you need to do. First, oh, I put it in there. And so nobody chatted. I don't have to send in a gift card and I just gave away what it's from. But trust your legal counsel. You need to have someone that can review this. And Carrie, how do you know if somebody really knows their stuff in privacy?
Well, hopefully, one, they talk about it. Two,
Mhm.
they have a license to talk about it legally. Um, and three, usually if you're speaking to someone in the arena of, privacy laws, cookie consent, all that, they've got some knowledge and understanding of how the web works, more so than just, hey, there's a thing called Google. So that's just where I say, if you're going to talk to your business attorney, not all business attorneys work in this space.
Right.
Not, in fact, there are some folks who just live in privacy. I don't just live in privacy, so that's a thing that you would never, but there are just attorneys dedicated to this, who live and breathe it, like, the attorney who started Termageddon. So that's just, you want to check the credentials, let's just put it that way. Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, and it's just because your cousin's second buddy from college got a law degree and you met him at the bar a couple weeks ago doesn't mean that they necessarily know privacy. So you do want to ask them those questions and say, you know, have you dealt with privacy related concerns before in business? Can you give me some information? And if they just say, I don't know, I'll check out the Googs, then you probably want to find somebody else, right?
What I
And
will say is this too, right? Like a lot of attorneys who may not sit in that space, they can do legal research. They can,
right,
get the information that they need to find for you. But what I will say is, don't talk to your buddy. This is where the buddy really comes in. Don't talk to your buddy who had a lawyer review their privacy policy and then say, just
oh,
copy and
yeah,
paste mine.
yeah, yeah. Even if you're in the same kind of business.
Exactly. Please don't do that. Please do
Yeah.
not do that, because this is where the personalization of these policies really comes into play. Like, where you're located matters. Who you
Mhm.
serve matters. The type of service or product you provide matters. The way you talk about it matters. Like, there are a lot of different things in play. So even if there's a privacy policy that works for, widget A company here, it's not going to be exactly the same for widget B company.
Right,
And so that's where I really do get concerned about people talking to their buddy. You're like, yeah, this worked for me. Go, you just copy and paste mine. You don't need to pay someone to do it.
right. Or worse, you go to ChatGPT and you explain what you are because all of the AI tools, I train on AI, and one of the most important things that people need to understand about every AI tool is that it can hallucinate. It can make up stuff that doesn't necessarily apply to you. And so you need to be very careful and have a real expert review all of these things. So, when you trust your counsel, your attorney owns the language and policies, and then you need a partner or someone to help you actually implement this. Now, a lot of our clients and friends, especially folks that attend these webinars, aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, but there are a lot of stones that you need to turn over to make sure that you're covering everything. So, a quick chat with your actual web partner is important as well. And so, what those things include are cookie consent banners, as we've talked about before. They need to be compliant, they need to pop up. They might not pop up right at the beginning of the website, but as soon as you scroll to a certain depth on the website, you should probably have that pop up show. And so that's one way to balance it. But you definitely want to make sure that people, before they enter information on your website, that they are being gently prodded to give their consent on your website. I know it's annoying. I know it stinks. I know it's kind of anti-user focused, but it's just the way of the world now. And people deserve to be able to say, nope, no thanks. And so you need to respect them on that. If you use HubSpot, there are a number of HubSpot privacy features. And depending on when you set up your HubSpot, you may have turned those off because you're like, well, I don't do business in California. Or maybe you set up HubSpot before any of this stuff was a thing. And you do need to go in and monitor and manage those settings. And so we can help you with that as well. Your consent settings, tracking that respects what a visitor actually agrees to. If they click OK, and then you go ahead and you submit something or you're collecting something that is outside of those things because you have a different tool, you need to be very careful on that so that you don't actually have some tool that is breaking your promise. And so, yeah, it's most of these things are designed to work together and they have a hierarchical permission structure where they won't if they see that, okay, yep, this user has opted out, but you need to be careful of that. And a lot of that is wrapped up inside of data management tools. So you need to have a handle on what you collect, what your deletion requirements are. I mentioned I checked my email this morning and I had one more. Please, remove my data from your database. So we went in, we unsubscribed them from our emails, we took their information and deleted them out of our CRM. And that's just the way it is. Now, if you get a request like that as a business owner and you are actually working with that person, so if you're completing a contract, there are some gotchas in there, right? Or there are some, like, okay, well, I obviously need to have your credit card information if I'm going to keep charging you for the service I provide. So, are there any things that, even if people requests that you can kind of, keep an asterisk next to, Carrie?
Um, that is a really good question that I think I would defer to local counsel.
Yeah,
How do
yeah.
you like that one?
Hmm. I like that.
I
That's
don't
good.
want to, I do not
Hmm.
want to answer that question because it will be taken too literally,
Right,
probably much broader than it should.
right. Well, I
Wow,
can't
talk about
say,
a lawyer. It
yeah,
depends.
I
I
love
know.
that. Yeah, you need to have that, and that's how you know.
Yep.
But I will say, like, even in HubSpot, if someone goes in and they request removal, you can go in and say, okay, well, when I'm sending this person a message, you can say, I am doing this in completion of a contract or because they requested it. And what that does is it keeps track of it in your information, in your CRM, so that you have that verifiable, like, history that you've been respecting their information, and the reason why you sent them a message even after they unsubscribed is because they pay you money to do things.
Yeah.
So, as
I
long
will
as you
say
have some way to
this.
do it.
Let
Yeah.
me give this caveat
Hmm.
along with that, because not all tools provide that. HubSpot's got a lot of great tools baked in, which is wonderful. But not everybody's in HubSpot yet. If not, talk to Dave and his team. He didn't know I was going to plug him, but do that. I would say that if you are going to communicate with someone who's like, remove all my information, just every communication you have to send based on a contractual obligation, say, per our contract, per our services agreement, I'm sharing this, just put it in the communication. Just write it in there. And then you can easily
Exactly.
copy print and or paste print, whatever you're going to do to save that. And you just say it every time. So, but again, be careful and talk to your lawyer.
Love that. And yeah, I agree completely. And one of the things that you could also try doing if someone does come into that, because yeah, a lot of times if you click, unsubscribe from emails, the cookie or the thing that comes in is a little over aggressive and it winds up unplugging you from all communications. So, making sure that your settings are set up correctly from that perspective is also important so that your tool, while trying to be helpful, doesn't wind up removing communications from people that you need to reach out to. So, just having those settings. And that's again why you need to keep track of these, use experts, and work with people that know what they're doing. Um, Again, and if your site was built before this, you probably need to look at that. The general kind of number for this is probably within the last couple of years. Certainly, you know, certainly within the last year for sure, if your website was improved or advanced, you're probably okay. But give that a review. Doesn't Termageddon have some sort of a review tool on it? So, you know,
Yeah, it's one of those, hey, you'll get email triggers like, hey, this new law just came into effect, come in and check it out. Hey, this new law just passed. Now's the time to go look and update your thing. And then I would say that like certain laws, like California's privacy law that SIPA that I keep referencing, like that was originally passed in 1967 and it was dealing with wiretapping. And now it's dealing with this, right? So like even if the law isn't new, updates might be new. And so that's where even having like, Dave, I think you said a quarterly check just to just set a time on your business calendar to review what's happening, who do I need to talk to would be super smart because these laws that are now being passed or updates to laws that have been in effect for many decades, that doesn't all happen at say January 1st and then we're fine. No. Some are like rolling out on May 7th. Some are March to, 29th. The laws are, there's nothing consistent, like absolutely zero consistency in that.
of
So
course, because why would it be?
why would we make this easy for ourselves? Why? So that's just where, having something more scheduled, having your team, say a busy web, like having them have something scheduled to say, hey, it's been a year. Have you checked in on these things? Just something like that. Just again, it goes back to surrounding yourself with the right team.
Right. Awesome. And the upshot of all of this is that nobody loves talking about privacy, but it still matters. We put together this and we were originally going to take the entire summer off, but we came out of hibernation. I guess it's not really hibernation in the summer. I came out of summer sunning myself lakeside to share this information because it's important that everyone knows. And we have a lot of things that we can do. It's easy-ish to head this off so that it's not a continual issue. It's basic company hygiene now. Just like having good passwords, just like training people not to click on phishing links and looking at the URLs before they click on anything, and making sure that when your CEO sends you an email asking for Apple gift cards, that you should probably call them to make sure before you actually send something to a random person, right? This is all basic data hygiene. And so making sure that you're thinking about it, that you're taking steps is incredibly important. Which leads us to our last slide before I go into Q&A, and that is book a privacy review. If you just go to busyweb.com/data privacy, we have clicks and connections. I think Jen posted in the Zoom webinar that if you would just send her an email at jen@busyweb.com or jen.meyer@busyweb.com, she'll be sure to send you the link to Termageddon if you're interested in that. Carrie's information is on screen here. She's Carrie@coveandcounsel.com, CARI. So please get a hold of Carrie if you'd like to talk seriously about your website privacy, or give us a call and we can help you either at that /data privacy link where we'll just give you an overview and tell you what's kind of missing from what we know. We will be telling you to talk to your attorney, but we'll do all of the things and we'll look at the stuff that you need to look at. And so just take a peek at all of that. If you're a BusyWeb customer already, you've received emails from us about this. And so would love to pick up that conversation. Our entire staff is well versed in the things that need to happen on all levels at HubSpot and in your website and in your email in order to get that stuff done. So that's what we have for slides. I do want to switch over quick and just go through questions. And this is going to be rapid fire because there was so much content to get through. So let's see. Nicole says, what's the best approach to updating your website and marketing assets, and where do you start? So I think on updating where to start, just look at if you have a cookie consent banner, right? Because if you don't, that's obvious right there, right? So, what are some of the best ways? This is Will says, what are some of the best ways to utilize assistants and agents to re-engage with older sales prospects. Oh, fascinating. So this is a little bit nerdy, and I love that Will does this. I know that Will's a account executive. And so you, if someone has explicitly asked to be forgotten, to be not tracked, to be whatever, you're kind of SOL. But if they haven't, the tools inside of HubSpot will handle all of the correct privacy considerations and all of those things, and they'll actually help you. So, make sure that you're going through that and just looking at that. But agents and assistants will follow the preferences of the people that have visited your website. So as long as you have a tool like HubSpot that will help you with that and that helps you keep track of it and monitor it, you're good. Um, let's see. Kayla says, what's changed? How is this going to impact small and large businesses? And how can BusyWeb help? Well, thank you, Caleb, but we kind of covered most of that already, so I think we're golden. Um, we had Carrie said, I just want to make sure our account is set up right. I know who Carrie is, and I can guarantee Carrie that we have set it up correctly for them because they actually reached out and they're on a marketing program with us. We're proactively doing this with all of our clients that we're like doing content with. And we do have a small one-time program that we run through that's inexpensive. We just go through and we'll give you, update all of your forms, go through all of the things and make sure that everything's set up correctly. So that's pretty much the questions. So that was actually pretty easy. Yeah, Carrie has one. I like Carrie
I don't actually.
O'Brien's calling
Yeah.
in.
Hi. Hey there. Hi there. Hey. Um, no, so I actually want to go back to the how do I update my website question? Like, how do I stay on top? So I just want to touch on that a little bit because this is where former content marketer really wants to geek out. And also I want to like reference back something you said, Dave. So a really good place to start is one, if you have a web team, contact your web team and have them do a full audit of your website. Dave mentioned, we have old webinar pages with forms on them and we were like, whoa, we had to go and update all those. You won't realize that unless you do a proper content audit on your website. So how to get started, you don't want to just start adding things unless what you're adding is a privacy policy, a disclaimer, disclosures, cookie consent, like the things we're talking about here. The sooner you add those, the better. And then next step, audit your website. Figure out all of the content you do have on it. What do you need to keep? What do you need to update? And what can you ditch? Because maybe you don't need to update 20 forms if you're never going to use those again and they're not bringing in traffic. It's not doing anything for your, like, what can you do there? That's where a proper audit comes in. Dave, I hope your team does them. I'm pretty
Oh
sure
my
you
gosh,
do.
yes.
I know.
Yes.
So if you don't know anyone who does that, Dave and his team, they will help you do that. I used to do that. I'm not in that space anymore. But I highly recommend that. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, Dave, like the older pages, because otherwise that might not come in. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And Michelle noted that, we should absolutely ask specifically for a privacy and consent audit because most web pros will look at the content in SEO and they might not look at privacy. So,
Oh
you
yeah.
want to make sure that you're careful on that. And it's a
That's a
different thing.
great That's a great note, Michelle. Thank you, because they aren't the same. These are not the same thing. But they are most definitely both incredibly important. So yes, ask for a content audit, ask for, a privacy and consent audit,
And I did
100%.
want to take a second and just kind of share what some of these things
Yeah.
look
What are
like.
we
Like we
looking
have a
at?
privacy policy at the
Oh,
bottom of our website.
heyo.
So what that looks like when you click on it is it takes you in and it goes through all of the details that you need to be concerned about, right? So see our
Mm.
full privacy policy. Here are the things that you can do. You can subscribe or unsubscribe from here. And then I wanted to share a quick form. So if you go to Let's Talk at the top of our website, it takes you to a simple form, name, business, phone number, company, job title. We do have a quick few things on what do you need help with and synopsis of projects. Not necessary, not necessary on those two, but here's the big one. And I'm going to zoom in. BusyWeb needs the contact information you provide to contact you about our policies and services. You may unsubscribe from these communications at any time. For information on how to unsubscribe, as well as our privacy practices and commitment to protecting your privacy. And then we link back to our privacy policy. So that's how we do it right now. right? So
Chef's kiss.
yeah,
Beautiful.
it's something. It's just
Hmm.
there. And
Hmm.
it's important. If you don't have that stuff, note that when I was scrolling around, it didn't hit me with the pop-up because it's my website and I'm obviously logged into my own website, right? But
Yeah.
having a good pop-up and a policy to make sure that people are consenting is incredibly important. Any last thoughts, Carrie, before we sign off?
My only last thought is a thank you, a thought of gratitude. Thank you so much for including me, Dave. Thank you for making this presentation available for folks. This isn't a sexy topic. People don't love talking about it. People don't want to deal with it. So I love that you gave effort, time, energy to this and that you included me. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And likewise, thank you, Carrie. Ever
Yeah.
since we first shared stage, it's always been fun keeping up with you and
Yeah.
we challenge each other and keep each other sharp and you showed us about a bunch of these things. So I think it's super important to have smart people in your network and it's always a pleasure working with you.
Right
So
back at you.
all right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful day. I hope this helped you generate buzz without getting stung or sued in this case. So until next time, which is coming up very quickly, we've got busy webinars and you can find all of those at busyweb.com/events-listing and much more to come. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.